In this true crime documentary, we uncover the shocking case of Connie Debate.
I just feel like, I don't know, surge from up above. I just feel the strength coming to me, right now. For all of us. She's here.
She was so kind. Everybody loved her. Everybody thought they were Connie's best friend.
She definitely made you feel welcomed, loved, that she cared about you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a person that she met that she didn't befriend.
She always had parties, whether it be family parties, or she even called them like high school reunions, where she'd get a bunch of our friends that we haven't seen for a long time and get them together. She loved seeing people come together, enjoying each other.
Our story today takes us into the quiet town of Ellington, a small and peaceful community in Tolland County, Connecticut, where around 16,000 residents live in long-established neighborhoods, and where the reputation for safety has kept the crime rate remarkably low. In this calm town lived Connie Debate, known before marriage as Connie Margota, born on July 31st, 1976, in Rockville, Connecticut, to her parents Kenneth and Cindy as one of 4 siblings. Connie and her siblings grew up between Vernon and Ellington, and she graduated from Ellington High School in 1995, before completing her degree at the University of Connecticut in 1999. Throughout her career, Connie worked in pharmaceutical sales, while also serving as a member and vice president of the Ellington Volunteer Ambulance Corps. Everyone who knew her described her as kind, generous, loving, and deeply compassionate, and her long history in volunteer work made it clear that she was the kind of person who gave without hesitation and constantly supported the people she cared for, which is why she was so loved by many. Connie had a wide circle of friends, and most of them considered her their closest companion. In the early 2000s, Connie told her friends she had met someone and they were genuinely happy for her. This man was Richard Debate, a charming Italian-American man she had quickly grown excited about. Richard, known as Rick, worked as network administrator, and he was deeply connected to his family. His parents said that the moment they met Connie, they knew she was the one. The couple, married in 2003, had 2 sons, RJ and Connor, and bought a large, beautiful home at 7 Birchview Drive in Ellington. Their life together continued in steady harmony, and although they faced ordinary disagreements like any other family, their home remained generally stable. But everything changed on December 23, 2015. That day began like any other, not only for the Debate family, but for the entire neighborhood, with no hint that within less than 4 hours the whole area would be sealed off by police and filled with fear. At around 8:10 that morning, Rick took his children to the nearby bus stop, while Connie stayed home getting ready for her cycling class. Rick's return from the bus stop changed into his work clothes, got into his car, and began the 40-minute drive to his job, saying he left the house around 8:30. But moments later, he realized he had forgotten his laptop, something he claimed was essential for work, so he turned back toward the house. At the exact moment, he remembered the laptop. He received an alert that the home security system had been triggered. He pulled his car to the side of the road and emailed his supervisor, explaining he would be delayed because the alarm had gone off, and that standard protocol required the security company to contact police, who would send an officer to check the house, and that he simply needed to return, make sure everything was fine, and then head to work. But 2 hours after Rick arrived back at the house, state police received a 911 call from the Debate residence. A call made up of only 2 words.
911. Hello? Hello.
The 911 call, along with the security company alert, was enough to send multiple officers rushing to Rick's home, and the moment they stepped inside, they were met with complete chaos. Rick was lying on the kitchen floor, his body marked with burns, scratches, and a deep cut across his arm. He told them to head straight to the basement, and when they did, they found Connie lying on the floor with 2 gunshot wounds, one to the back of her head and another to her abdomen. In that moment, detectives knew they were dealing with an armed killer still on the loose, so they swept every nearby home and warned the entire neighborhood not to step outside. Inside the house, Rick began describing what he claimed had happened from the moment he entered the home to the moment he called 911. He said he returned between 8:45 and 9 o'clock, and the second he stepped in, he heard a noise upstairs. He moved slowly toward the sound and said he found a tall man dressed in camouflage wearing a mask and rummaging through Connie's jewelry. The intruder saw him raise a knife and demanded cash credit cards and the PIN numbers. Rick claimed he handed over his wallet. He said the man's face was completely covered, but he was tall, around 6'2", heavily built with a deep voice, and Rick compared him to Vin Diesel. After that, he said everything became foggy and happened in a blur. Then he heard Connie returning home and shouted for her to run.
I yelled to her to get out of the house. My wife didn't run. She must have ran into the basement because we have 2 guns in the house. One was in the basement in a lockbox and one's in our closet. She ran downstairs.
In the meantime, Connie ran to the basement trying to retrieve a gun to defend Rick. But the man chased her, and Rick said he heard 2 gunshots at 9:05. Rick ran to the basement and found his wife lying dead on the floor, while the intruder held one of her guns. Then the man attacked him, slashing his legs with a box cutter, tying him to a chair, and burning him with a blowtorch. Rick said he managed to grab the blowtorch and burn the intruder's face, forcing the man to flee quickly. While still tied, he dragged himself to the kitchen to press the panic button connected to the alarm system. Afterwards, he made a brief 911 call.
I'm sitting in the chair, I was kind of half tied up, in shock, I guess.
What do you mean half tied up?
I had one leg free and an arm free. He tied one leg, tied one arm, and he tied my neck fairly tight with a tie wrap. And I got torch to kind of just blow in his mask a little bit, but it caught on fire. He dropped a blowtorch. I was starting to scream for help. I screamed for help. I couldn't hear a soul. I got really, really dizzy.
After taking Rick's statements, he was transported to the hospital while detectives had already begun examining the crime scene, which at first suggested that whoever entered the house knew it well because there were no signs of forced doors or windows. However, this theory quickly collapsed when investigators noticed the kitchen window was open and the basement window had an opening that anyone could have used to enter. All hospitals were alerted to report any patient coming to the emergency room for burns, because according to Rick, he had burned the intruder's face. While officers at the scene collected the weapon for examination, they noticed nothing had actually been stolen from the house, which raised a new question. If the intruder did not steal anything, then why enter, and why the extreme violence that killed Connie and left Rick with severe injuries? As detectives tried to solve this puzzle, one officer questioning neighbors found something that would complicate the case further. Rick's wallet taken by the intruder was found on the ground outside the house with all credit cards intact, something the detectives had not expected, but it was not the last strange detail. Meanwhile, Connie's family and friends had learned of her death and arrived at the house. But the investigators did not expect that what seemed like a normal visit under the circumstances would provide answers to the questions at the crime scene. When detectives asked if anyone had a grudge against the Debate family, nearly everyone mentioned one person, the contractor the family had hired months earlier for home renovations. His name was Ken, and when officers checked with friends, they discovered a legal dispute between the family and the contractor had occurred and ended in favor of the family. After the ruling, Rick was surprised to find his car windows completely shattered, which led them to install a security system at the home, but Connie was still worried, so they decided to purchase a gun, which Rick kept for protection. For investigators at this point, this man had motive and the ability to enter the house as a contractor who had worked there for months. All these details seemed to fit perfectly with a crime scene where nothing was stolen, yet ended in the murder of a mother. Detectives had no choice but to search for this contractor, which took time as he was out of town, and when he returned, he voluntarily went to investigators, agreed to have his fingerprints taken, and even proved he had been out of town on business 2 days before the crime, and returned afterward, which investigators verified. On the other hand, this contractor was not tall or heavily built, which contradicted the description of the intruder given by Rick. In the end, the man was cleared from suspicion, and by this time, 2 full weeks had passed since the crime, without any evidence for investigators to follow.
2 weeks and still no arrest in the murder of a young Ellington mother. 39-year-old Connie Debate was found dead just before Christmas.
Police responded to her Birchview Drive home after the house alarm was activated. They found her husband, Richard Debate, injured inside the smoky home. Police later found Connie with gunshot wounds to the head and stomach. Her death ruled a homicide, but police have yet to make an arrest, and they've said there is no threat to the public. Still, the entire situation putting residents around town on edge.
Understandably, Fox 61's Katie Corrado went to Ellington today to get some answers. She joins us now with the very latest. Katie?
Audrey and Brent, this murder happened on December 23rd, and people in town tell me the more time passes without answers, the more the rumor mill seems to churn. But answers so far are scarce.
The detectives are working very hard. They're waiting for a lot of evidence to come back from the labs. They want all their ducks in a row before they can make a decision of what's going on.
Ellington First Selectman Lori Spielman says she's in touch with police nearly every day and has been told this was an isolated incident. Any idea when something might be coming?
I don't know, maybe next week, but they are still waiting for some of the evidence to come back from the labs.
We reached out to state police tonight for an update on the investigation, but have not heard back. We also tried contacting Connie's husband, Rick Debate, but he has not responded.
After 2 weeks without any comment from the police, it was expected since they have no suspect. But what nobody anticipated was that Rick himself remained silent, avoiding the media, even though he should have been the one most eager to pressure authorities to catch the killer. Meanwhile, the data analysis results from all electronic devices in the house had not arrived, and all investigators had, at that moment, was that the gun found in the basement had fired the shots. Yet strangely, there were no fingerprints on it at all. Not Connie's, not Rick's, and not the intruder's, which puzzled everyone. But the most shocking aspect for investigators, friends, and even the media was Rick's behavior, which began on the day of the funeral, attended by hundreds. Yet Rick was the first to leave. A decision that baffled everyone, especially since the funeral took place 4 days after the crime, and all attendees noted only that Rick showed no visible injuries. Investigators then decided to re-examine Rick's statements and his actions after the crime, and what they discovered would change everything. The day after Connie's death on Christmas Eve, Rick hired a lawyer, and within a week, he filed for Connie's life insurance policy worth $475,000 and withdrew $93,000 from an investment account in Connie's name. On the surface, Connie and Rick's marriage seemed perfect as everyone believed, but behind closed doors, there was much going on. In December 2014, Connie began a note on her phone titled, "Why I Want a Divorce," detailing how irresponsibly Rick managed money, describing him as a negligent father, showing no interest or affection. Writing, "He takes money from accounts that are not his, apologizes without taking responsibility." And she added, "I know nothing about his day, who he talks to, or what happens in his life besides work. I am tired of covering for him, tired of the lies and pretending everything is fine when it is not." In the section Reasons to Stay in the Marriage, she wrote people like him when he is in a good mood. He is charming, and I still find him attractive and can be myself around him. This note alone was enough for investigators to begin digging into Rick's life, and pieces of the puzzle began to emerge. Rick was having an affair with a woman named Sarah, whom he had known since high school, and Connie knew her too. In fact, Sarah gave a speech at Rick and Connie's wedding. Their relationship had been on and off for years, but resumed strongly in May 2015, and a month later, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. When investigators questioned Sarah about the nature of her relationship with Rick, she confirmed their information, providing a written statement saying she was pregnant by Rick, and that he had convinced her he would leave Connie. But she discovered he was lying, because at the same time, he was on a romantic trip with Connie, and she had seen the photos Connie posted on Facebook. When confronted, he asked for time, claiming he would end the marriage, and he did speak with a divorce lawyer, but no action was taken. When investigators confronted Rick with this information, he gave an explanation that shocked them. He admitted to a sexual relationship, but claimed it was only because Sarah wanted children. She said she wanted to have a child herself, but could not afford it, and asked Rick to be the donor.
We were going to donate sperm to her to have a kid.
Untraditional, but traditional in the way that the baby was conceived.
Yeah.
If what he said before seemed strange, then what was even stranger was that he claimed Connie knew about Sarah and agreed to it so that Sarah could get pregnant.
Issues with that?
It was her idea, in a way.
Investigators were able to confirm that Connie had no knowledge of Rick's affair with Sarah, and that he had admitted to a friend that Sarah's pregnancy was an accident. When confronted by investigators, he gave a second story claiming that Connie could not have another child, but wanted one, and that Sarah had offered to carry the baby for them, with the understanding that all three would share in raising the child. After detectives expressed disbelief, Rick was forced to change his story a third time, admitting that the pregnancy was an accident and that the affair lasted only a month. After multiple versions of his relationship with Sarah, investigators began tracing every move he made before Connie's murder and discovered that he had been using a secret credit card to pay for flowers for Sarah hotel stays and more than $1,000 at a nightclub. Rick also had searched online for lethal mixes, over-the-counter drugs fast undetectable, household poison and tasteless, easy-to-obtain toxins, all of which pointed to one conclusion, that Rick was responsible for Connie's death. But there was no concrete physical evidence. While investigators were struggling to find any material proof, the electronic device analysis from Connie's house arrived. But what truly mattered was her Fitbit, which she wore constantly, and through it, detectives were able to reconstruct a precise timeline of that day. At 8:44 a.m., on December 23rd at their home, one of the garage doors was recorded opening and closing, which matched the time Connie left for her workout class at the gym. This was later confirmed by surveillance video showing Connie arriving at the gym at 8:53 a.m., and her Fitbit started recording activity at 8:50 a.m. At the same minute, Rick logged in to fully disable the security system, including the motion sensors, then restarted it with the sensors active, and received a text confirming the alarms were on, suggesting he was about to leave for work. 9 minutes later, at 8:59 a.m., Rick disabled the system again, using the remote, which only works within 500 feet of the house, indicating he was at home or very close by around 9 a.m. This implies Rick returned to check why the alarm had gone off, and that the 9-minute window was when the intruder was supposed to have entered the house. But not only did the alarm system show no intruder, it showed no motion inside the house at all. And if that was not suspicious enough, further evidence revealed something even more troubling. At 9:02 a.m., Rick's tablet data confirmed he was at home using the internet because the IP address showed a login to his Outlook account at 9:04 a.m. The same data showed Rick sent an email to his supervisor from the same IP address, yet he told investigators he had stopped his car before returning home to send the email. And in the message, he said he was on his way home, not that he was already home. Rick claimed the attack lasted only 5 minutes. If the alarms show he was back at 9 a.m. and sent the email at 9:04 a.m., then the entire attack would have had to occur in 1 minute, which was impossible. This is where Connie's Fitbit became a major piece of evidence, which is why this case is sometimes called the Fitbit murder. When Connie arrived at the gym, she stayed only a few minutes because her class was canceled. The Fitbit shows no movement for 8 minutes starting at 9:08 a.m., the time she was driving back home. Rick insisted his wife was shot immediately upon arriving at the house, but the Fitbit shows she moved 1,217 feet inside her home between 9:18 and 10:05 a.m. Facebook records also show she was active online for about 6 minutes during that time. If Connie had returned from the gym and gone straight to the basement, as Rick said, the Fitbit would have recorded only about 200 feet of movement and no activity after her death. Her last recorded movement was at 10:17 a.m., just 17 minutes before the 911 call, which is believed to be her actual time of death. A small but important point noted that Rick canceled the home security contract only 12 days after Connie's death.
Been arrested, charged with murdering his wife more than a year ago.
Connie Debate, an Ellington mother of two, brutally murdered in her home 2 days before Christmas. Well, tonight, finally, a break in that case. A newly released 50-page arrest warrant revealing what was happening inside that home, inside that marriage.
Yeah, we also have this exclusive video showing Mr. Debate being transported by state police tonight.
Grant says Debate is being held under a $1 million bond and is scheduled to appear in court on Monday. State police say the investigation turned over every stone.
It's very important to follow all leads, follow all evidence, speak to all witnesses, any potential suspects. This is about the victim.
Grant says the lengthy investigation was a collaborative effort from several factions of law enforcement. She claims it was necessary to be extremely thorough during the process in order to prevent possible mistrials in the future. Community members reacting to the arrest of Rick Debate right in their own backyard.
Anytime somebody loses their life, it's unfortunate, especially when it's domestic.
Friday afternoon, neighbors say 40-year-old Debate was pulling onto the family street when he was served an arrest warrant for the murder of his wife, Connie. And now community members feel justice is on the horizon.
Richard Rick Debate was arrested and charged with murder, tampering with evidence and giving false statements. During a hearing, the state argued for a $5 million bail due to the wealth of his entire family. The defense told the judge he was a father with no criminal record and strong community ties. In the end, bail was set at only $1 million, which he paid immediately. During the period from his release until his trial, he cared for the child he had with Sarah. The trial of Richard was scheduled for April 2020, but with jury selection, the pandemic and the death of Richard's attorney, everything was delayed. Finally, in April 2022, his trial began.
Of a murder trial that has gained worldwide attention.
Now, cameras are not allowed in the courtroom for this trial, but we are allowed to sit in and listen. The now former detective told jurors that Richard Debate gave law enforcement consent to search his Ellington home, his iPhone, and also allow them to swab him for DNA and gunshot residue. The state presented other evidence, including photographs of Richard Debate's injuries while he was in his hospital bed, along with clothing, his hospital socks, and a shoe that had blood on it. Debate's attorney had this to say outside the courtroom today.
As the trial's ongoing, we would love to make comments day to day as each piece of evidence comes in, explain our defense and explain our side. But what we need to do is respect the process here.
Now, that Fitbit that we've been talking about, that hasn't been mentioned in court just yet, but I'm sure it will be brought up. Tomorrow, though, the jury is expected to listen to the rest of that 4-hour recording. We are live from Rockville. Courtney Zeller, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
On May 10th, after 22 days of trial, the jury took only 3 hours to deliver a guilty verdict.
Guilty on all counts. A jury has reached a verdict in the Richard Debate murder trial.
Mark and Aaron, a lot of surprise here at the courthouse. The jury probably deliberated for at the most 3 hours. Richard and Connie's families had emotional reactions as the verdict was read.
Connie was essentially sentenced to death, while this convicted murderer has been living his life while out on parole for 6.5 years. There will be no closure for the Margada family, but there is finally justice for Connie.
In the end, Richard Debate was sentenced to 65 years in prison. Richard's attorney appealed the sentence, but the appeal was denied in March 2025. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.